candidate and you want to be a legislator, you want to be in the 33rd legislature. So, first of all, I want you to tell us about yourself, because a lot of people may have heard the name but maybe don't know who Genevieve Whitaker is. So you go right ahead and tell me.
I want to first give all praises to the Creator for everything and for my own blessings and where I am today. And so, very good question. I just wanted to highlight, when I first moved back home, my first job was actually serving in the legislature. That was one of my very first positions, was serving as the legal counsel. So my responsibility focused on legislative drafting, research, and writing, based on my background as a person who went to law school, a trained attorney, and also essentially my work within that arena of research and writing. And the question, that's a good question, why? And I see my decision to run for office as a God-given calling. In fact, I've really looked at, from very young age, being one who has been committed to service, raised within an environment, within a family structure and environment, raised by a single grandmother who I'm named after, along with my parents, grandparents, and a whole community of my godparents as well, who helped shape my foundation. So I see this opportunity to give service on a higher level, and if when elected, as I speak to the truth of the power of if the people humbly, essentially humbly seeking people's support for me to serve as a representative, I know that I will continue to do my best as one who's also an advocate. I'm a trained advocate and one who has fought for the rights of Virgin Islanders and other peoples.
Okay, well, very good. Well, you go right ahead and tell us all about your program and what really is going on.
Great. So let me break down for you, and I want to thank the station for, of course, now you're going to begin to hear many of my ads. I want to break down my platform for the people of the Virgin Islands, specifically for the people of St. Croix, whom I will represent. I have 6 platform items. I will start off with educational revitalization. That centers really on my passion for the issues surrounding our literacy crisis and also the shortfalls and the shortcomings of our curriculum. When I speak about economic revitalization, that centers on my platform approach to revitalizing our economy through both the concept of ecotourism, and when I speak of that, I'm talking about essentially the more robust approach to highlighting our history for the purpose of having more overnight visitors, and also the issues surrounding bonding. One of the things I have researched and I've always reached out to experts about is the concept of taxes and bonding, whereby my interest in rebuilding our critical facilities, that's our schools, our hospitals, and other important buildings. And then also I would, speak into the issues surrounding crime and youth, crime prevention. As an educator, also, I come to that commitment to having taught crime prevention measures at the university level. I'm also a university professor, having taught at the university for over 8.5 years, teaching specifically juvenile justice. Also during law school and undergrad, I was involved in programs surrounding juvenile justice issues surrounding prevention. The other item in terms of my platform is on sustainable development. I'm very passionate about the environment, coupled with the opportunities through sustainable development and also tying that into economic development, because within the surrounding efforts, initiatives surrounding essentially our environment and issues, whether we're talking about our offshore landfill and things like that, we've lost economic opportunities for issues surrounding our, and speaking to more specifically to how the environment affects us. I would also highlight we have a lot of issues where people's health have been affected by industries, but also by man-made, essentially, I wouldn't say disasters, but essentially, and it's, larger issue of climate change, of course, man-made disasters, but we're talking about even things after the hurricane that's affected people's lives created by man. In other words, we have issues with emissions and things like that, and also some areas which I'll highlight a little bit later about my concerns about the environment. So let's backtrack and let's break it down, because people ask, what are my exact plans? Mm-hmm. What is your exact plans? So as a senator, what would you do? One of the things is I highlight my background actually in drafting legislation. Research is my strength. I come to offer that as my qualifications. And specifically, as we break down the various platform items, I've broken down into three major areas. So breaking down the matters surrounding our economic development. So as we know, a lot of money came in with the disaster funding. We've had billions of dollars coming through. We've had the Public Finance Authority, the Economic Development Authority, our Department of Finance involved in those, the administration of those funds. What I'm proposing is that we offer, and I understand our bonds, our bond rating is really bad right now. They're considered to be junk bonds. But ambitiously approaching the matter of taxes and bonding, where we can in fact specifically assist our local farmers attract those from away, but also work on keeping those monies here. And when I say taxes, I'm talking about for the purpose of rebuilding our schools, our hospitals, and key facilities, Herbert Gregg, the Rehabilitation Center, the list goes on, the efforts now that you hear the efforts to have a mental health facility. We're talking about major construction contracts that we could offer to help rebuild ourselves and build our community. When I speak about ecotourism, let me break that down. I will propose legislation specifically to build up and to work with the Economic Development Authority, the Department of Tourism, and the Department of Education, specifically to essentially push on an effort for historical tourism. I would highlight that I'm a member of the St. Croix United for Community Culture, Environment, and known as Economic Development, known as Succeed, in which one of the greatest efforts through that organization, which spent a great deal of time working with the former delegate to Congress, Donna Christensen and others, that was also part of the former delegates platform in terms of bringing in opportunities through the National Historic Area designations. And that, of course, was vetted in the community. So if you begin to look at economic ecotourism and the benefits of that, I will even put out there to the public that the Department of Tourism, through its budget presentation, indicated that that is one of the great areas that they're looking into at a much more robust way, a much greater way, in which they will try to capitalize on our history as a means of which to bring people to the islands, and specifically talking about this island, St. Croix, our rich history. I've had the opportunity to travel in my travels, seen various models of ecotourism. We also speak about our sporting opportunities within the context of ecotourism. We have to build facilities as well. And I'll go on now to education. Literacy being the foundation of all learning. That is key. One of the things I want to propose, a number of things within education in terms of literacy, is that I would like to, in fact, propose legislation to go after and provide even incentives to persons involved in, as they're called, intervention specialists. I attended the August, I'm sorry, look at the date. I attended back in a few months ago the Developmental Disabilities Policymakers Orientation, and that was held back in June 26th. And essentially that was a really important orientation for us as people running for office, where we spoke about developmental challenges. My offer of legislation would be to essentially work with the local service providers to help work with our Department of Education to help address the needs of our children, recognizing that children have different learning styles, and we account for that through support and raising the literacy level. Thereby, we'll be able to then address some of the issues that happen later on. And this also involves assessments, essentially retraining some of our teachers and also encouraging persons to pursue the teaching field and becoming teachers. That will also involve retaining a lot of those young people who actually, and older folks who actually go back to school, even in fact, who become teachers, and working with all the educators and also the parents as well. And going further on education and what I will actually do and propose, when we talk about the concepts around our curriculum. I am very concerned about our curriculum. We know that we have the Department of Education, we have the Board of Education, the Career and Technical Board. The Board of Education is responsible for curriculum. And I would continue to put out the fact that there are several courses of studies for which the board has not engaged in putting out an actual curriculum for. You have the current technical board in charge of vocational education, so all the courses within the vocational fields. And the Department of Education is supposed to really execute it under the executive branch. The courses of studies that are mandated right now by law is Virgin Islands Caribbean history, for which I've been on the stage not on this particular show, but I've been on the station here talking about the issues surrounding the mandate and why myself and others took the government to court to implement Virgin Islands Caribbean history and culture. I can say we're winning in that sense that in fact it's happening, but we have to continue to push as a community to ensure that it's completed. We also have a requirement for economics and finance at the secondary level, high school level. There's a requirement for civics. In August back of 2016, I testified in support of the bill which became law on the mandate and the requirement for a civics course in high school. I would say we have to go further than that. 2 years ago in that same year, I took part in a civics conference held by the Board of Education, where we discussed with advocates and others, we discussed the importance of starting civics from a younger grade. Also, a requirement, there are other requirements. We have even the swimming program that's supposed to be implemented, hospitality, and there are others. I would also like to add the importance of the equine and also the hospitality industry and adding to what's necessary to essentially have career interests. Then there's the whole vocational programming, all in an effort to create lifelong learners within our children and learning, and they become lifelong learners, and also to ensure that we create a strong workforce. Mr. Williams and the public, we have to overhaul the education system without a doubt. And we have to hold the people responsible for that. And of course, that would be the Education Committee. If elected and able to serve and appointed to serve on the Education Committee, that would be my mandate to work collaboratively. I also want to work with the Department of Human Services in the effort to overhaul the juvenile justice system for the Virgin Islands and addressing the Youth Rehabilitation Center challenges. Our children there essentially needed, of course, not just addressing the issue of their curriculum and what they're learning there in the facility, but also issues surrounding their development, some of the challenges they've had, as to why they're there. It's a lot of the need for counseling.
Well, you have touched on certainly a number of areas that are very, very important in regards to, even involving legislation. And I'm glad in terms of hearing your background, because, of course, working at legislature, and even though you are a professor over the University of the Virgin Islands, okay, and you indicated you do have a strong research background in which you get involved in, which is very important in the legislature, okay? But of course, some of the areas that you touch on about, particularly in terms of economics, revitalization of our economy here in the Virgin Islands, which is very important, because even though we're getting a lot of federal monies that are coming in, you did indicate that there may probably be some major contracts and some construction contracts that will be taking place. Now, one of the problems that's occurring here is that many of our local contractors tend to feel that they're not being able to be a part of that. Do you see that as a problem, and in what ways that you see that can be addressed to get them involved?
Exactly, and I'm aware of the challenges. I also know that there are many who benefited from post-storm efforts to get them contracted. But what the issue of bonding, and that's what I want to touch on. I am, in fact, and I have begun the process of reaching out to the Economic Development Authority administrators and, in fact, the director himself. And I would like to look at solutions towards that end. I remember historically that, and I'm aware of the history regarding bonding, where there are a lot of local contractors who the EDA assisted within the bonding process. And so looking at that effort and cutting out, oftentimes, I think the banks have also held back many of the contractors. So the EDA really taken a bigger step, as they used to in the past. And of course, as you're aware, that there were a lot more local contractors back in the day, and the Economic Development Authority worked with them. So that is that's a major priority of mine. And to work outside, I know we have funding challenges, and to work even outside the Virgin Islands and see how we can get funds in here. And working with even some of these outside contractors to ensure that the work is really done, and that our contractors are on the same level. They're not just subcontractors, but they're at the same level. They're partners with these companies, and essentially they're able to get the right compensation for their work.
Okay, and even we talk along that line. You did mention education is one of your major points, that you do want to deal with. And I see particularly you indicated in regards to training, technical skills training, apprenticeship training, and so forth for our young people. Because even though we may be getting all these companies and stuff coming in here, right now you're seeing a lot of companies are looking for workers. And we have a lot of people here who might still be looking for jobs, but may not have the skills to be able to do that. And it seems like there's something that has to be done where we need to create a big program here to be able to train a lot of young people here in various skills that can be used in even the construction area and some of the other areas, even the refinery.
And that's right, Mr. Williams. So what was established in this 32nd legislature was the apprenticeship program has been passed. So, but now that onus is on the current technical board, and just to highlight, they're not sufficient members. In other words, like many boards,
on the board itself,
the board itself. So the governor, because the legislature, we only have the power to to essentially accept the appointment. Or of course vet the person and then we vote them up or down. The governor has to appoint people to the current technical board to even make the apprenticeship program a success. And I've already done the process. I mean, even well before running for office, for years now, I've always reached out to different contractors that I know of, through my grandfather, who was a contractor himself, had a construction company, and others. I'm saying to them, to the welders, to the plumbers, and different people. I always talk to them about that. How did you become a welder and a plumber and so on? And they talk about it because even the whole U.S. society, the whole Virgin Islands society, was built upon apprenticeship. That was a big thing back in the day. So we're really, in the sense of as much as we're going forward, we have to also look backward. And we talk about the Sankofa, reach back, and come forward. And I think that we can do this. And this is a great opportunity, I think, for the older and the younger generation, elders and the young people, to come together. And it's a great opportunity, and we see the joy in young people who are being given an opportunity to work and see a future within the whole economic revitalization.
And the fact that a lot of them are working, even crime has been reduced. So that's very important. The other thing is that you talk about ecotourism, and
yes.
I think that's a great thing here, particularly for St. Croix. And when I see about ecotourism, I think about our agriculture, our farmers who are even here, who wants to be a part of the market. And certainly, even though some people may not think it, but I think that agriculture can certainly be also one of those resources that can help the territory financially, but also it can be something that can be developed even though it could benefit us locally, it can also be put in a way that it can be an attraction for tourism.
And it absolutely is. So what you have so all a part of the history, and they do tours and they do hikes. You bring them to the farm, they see, they taste the different foods. And we've had that. We've had different, big types of tourism entities have come here. The guy for the strangest foods, and so it's essentially the possibilities are endless. And if we begin to have and get the Department of Agriculture with the Economic Development Authority, have the finance committee, everybody working in together in tandem, we'll be able to change that. But I also want to highlight before we close the report, we have a number of minutes left, but I wanted to highlight that as part of my canvassing effort, I've been canvassing, knocking on doors. I want to thank those of you who have opened their doors to me as we continue along this train, and to meet you and to hear your concerns and even your solutions you've offered. We, myself, I'm here with Mr. Troy Johannes, my campaign manager, and we were in the Candido Guadalupe community, and Friedenberg, I was butchered the name, Friedenberg, and I'm very concerned as we were knocking on the doors and listening to the concerns of the residents. They're impacted right there across from the Kings Hill graveyard, State Slob. All the debris from the hurricane, dust is coming into their homes. Just dust. By the time I was finishing canvassing too, I was like, I had dust all over, all over me, whatever. But they have to live in that. So those of you who are listening, I know some of, as I asked, even some of those listen to your program, they're definitely listening to your program, Mr. Williams. I say to you, I am very concerned, and that I will do what I can also to pleading to the government, to the Department of Planning and Natural Resources, to the housing community. Well, we have to do better for the people that live there. They're impacted, little children who have to, it's a real sad situation. So I hope that something can be done about that, and I will make my effort to assist. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Yeah. I know you did indicate before, at least in 5 minutes, last part of the program, if anybody may have a question, they could call in. So I just want to let that out to the public. You can give us a call if you have a question. And who we do have here with us is Genevieve Whitaker. She is running for the legislature, to be in the 33rd legislature. And I'm bringing the ballots.
Yeah, number 21 on the ballot.
I just want to ask you what your number
yes,
is.
number 21 on the ballot. Thank you.
Because I just saw a sample ballot, and the numbers are all listed. Another area that is very important too, and you did mention that, I must say that you have touched quite a number of the areas that really we need to be involved with, and that you're talking about sporting events, about even sporting as even a tourism attraction, but even for us locally here, okay? And the key thing there is getting the facilities in place.
That's right.
We can talk about how much how much sporting events and so we may want to have, and there are people various sporting entities that would love to come here, but the key thing that they want to make sure you have the facility to do it. What are some of your plans in that area, if possible?
And that goes back to the taxes and bonding. So we think about it is that we can provide tax incentives to both local contractors and also those contractors on the outside. Is that they would, for the specific purpose of building these type of facilities, they would be able to get tax exemption for that. And that is what I'm proposing, and the offerings of the Economic Development Authority is also that we also, of course, are aware of the Home Depot project. That was also a tax incentive program. That was called TIF, tax increment financing, and so essentially, as I look at it, economic development really being the investment in our economy, being at the center of our ability to overhaul the workforce development system.
Okay,
all in concert with moving us forward. So I want to thank you. I also want to, before we get the phone lines, I want to, Mr. Troy Johannes, my campaign manager, would like to share a few words about our canvassing efforts, and then we'll go straight to the phone lines. Thank you.
Yes, good morning, everyone. I would like to share some thoughts on our effort to move this program forward. We're looking for some canvassers. We're looking for canvassers and people to join our focus groups. We really need to touch many people in the community. It's a widespread effort. It's an effort that we need each and everybody to feel like they're part of. So we're going to be canvassing. We would like some more canvassers and some people to join separate focus groups that we have. So we're going to have some kind of, I should say, town hall meetings prior to election. Therefore, can you please contact Genevieve Whitaker on her website, www.genevievewhitaker.com. You can also reach out to her on her Facebook page, supporters of Genevieve Whitaker. You can also even reach me on my Facebook page, Troy Johannes. And together we can do this.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll open up the phone to
Okay,
callers.
yes, you do have a caller. Okay, caller, you got a question? Go right ahead.
Pleasant, good morning. How are you? Thank you, Ms. Mack, for calling in with us. I want to thank you, Ms. Mary Mack, and other educators and specialists, because I know that we can do this. I want to thank you for your words and your words of inspiration. Thank you so much, and we're going to work on this, and we're going to work hard and fight for the children of the Virgin Islands. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. And I think we have another caller. Caller, you got a question? Go right ahead.
Good morning. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, there you got it. Okay.
Thank you.
But certainly, as you indicated, that you are having, might be setting up various forums and so forth, but do you have the where are you going to have these, or do you have a headquarters or anything like that set
So,
up as yet?
so what we have. So when you reach out to me with the focus groups, we have been bringing, for example, education, bringing educators together, healthcare professionals for healthcare focus group, and for economic development, persons within the private sector. And so essentially what we want to be push forward, we're working on surveys, and we would like to have a meeting. I would like to have actually a town hall type meeting towards the actual election day. We don't have a date set, but we are in the process, and people have come forward, so we appreciate that. Headquarters, no, we have a very grassroots effort. So I also want to highlight donations are really welcome as well. You can also donate to the campaign in support of that. So we've been gracious to have supporters. We've also had businesses have opened to us, restaurants, and we appreciate that and the help that we've received so far. Thank you. Have a caller?
Yes,
you did?
we do have
okay.
a call.
Okay.
Caller, you're on the air. Go right ahead. Got a question?
Good morning. How are you? Pleasure to hear your voice. Oh, thank you. Great, great question. So, Troy and I were working on that. I want to thank those who came out and supported our food. So we tentatively set it for, I think, October 6th.
October 6th.
Yeah, so we're working on that. So thank you for those who came out and supported. Thank you. And I also want to thank the owner of Armstrong.
Cedric Armstrong.
This is
Armstrong
Cedric.
Ice Cream.
Yes. So we appreciate that support. So thank you. Blessed. Thank you.
Okay, very good. So we just about ran out of time here, but what are anything else you'd really like to put forward there, before we run out of time here?
So when I first, and Tori Rose reminds me also with the VI sign, it's number 21 on the ballot. I want to thank the public, though everyone in the whole community, and understand that I will be fighting for you. I'm fighting. I fought before. I'm fighting now. And I know that I'm going to do my best to serve the people of the Virgin Islands. And again, number 21 on the ballot, you can put up the VI sign in support of my effort to serve as your next one of your representatives in the 33rd Legislature. Thank you so much, Mr. Williams. Thank you to the Reef Broadcasting station and the whole Reef Broadcasting family. Thank you so much, and I appreciate it. And all the love and blessings to our territory, to people of our territory.
And
Number 21 on the ballot. When you put up the VI sign, it's representation for all of us. It's
okay, very good. Well, we certainly want to thank you, Genevieve Whitaker, for being here, and particularly